Greetings and salutations, fellow book readers. This is Mark, and the book I'll review today is Tropic of Cancer. Before we continue, this is personalized limited edition of the Tropic of Cancer with a leather cover designed and made by me. At the end of the video, I will tell you a couple of ways of how you can get one for yourself, if you are interested. Now let's get back to the review. Tropic of Cancer is a semi-autobiographical novel written by Henry Miller. It was first published in France in 1934 with financial help from Miller's mistress, Anneliese Nin. If you are interested in Henry Miller, you should read Anneliese Nin, since she knew him on a more intimate level, and he is featured in a few of her erotic novels, although under alias. Miller pioneered a new style of writing where he mixed fiction with reality, and through his autobiographical descriptions he indirectly engaged in social, political, and economic criticism. But probably the writings are most marked by extensive use of obscenity and graphic sexuality, and this is the reason why many of his books were banned in the US until the 1960s. Initially, Tropic of Cancer was published in Paris, and it took almost 30 years and the Supreme Court decision for the book to be allowed in the United States. And that's America, with its idiosyncrasies and false morality. And not to say that the rest of the world is any better. What is Tropic of Cancer about? The book is a mix of autobiography, fiction, and philosophy, written in a low and pleasant, occasionally sarcastic tone. It is about expat life in the 1930s Paris, and about being relatively young, single, hungry, horny, etc., etc. Miller and his friends portrayed in the book are somewhat of an extension of Hemingway's Lost Generation. They could be called Lost Generation 2.0. The writing is best described by Miller himself in a letter to a friend when he writes, "I start tomorrow on the Paris book. First person, uncensored, formless, fuck everything." Further, he says, "A Tropic of Cancer is not really a book, but an insult. A kick in the pants to God, man, destiny, time, love, beauty, what you will." And he doesn't spare anybody or anything. Now, a bit of the plot. Well, there isn't much of the plot, but there is Henry Miller wandering the streets of Paris, scavenging for food, staying uninvited with friends, and fornicating on instinct, and in between or during, reflecting on life and the state of the world. During all these activities, he interacts with other individuals. Some are alive, and others as a memory during his reflections. There is Boris, a Jew pretending to be a Pole, and Carr, who went from Paris lover to Paris hater, and wants Miller to write a letter to the rich Count Irene, and Fillmore, with whom Miller stays, and while there appears Masha, the Russian princess with Klep, who doesn't want to put out, which probably was a good thing, considering she seems to be more diseased than an equatorial chimp. Okay, then Miller remembers his wife Mona, left behind in New York, and Tanya, about whom Miller has fond erotic memories. "Oh Tanya, where now is that warm cunt of yours, those fat, heavy garters, those soft, bulging thighs?" And there are a few more characters, consisting mostly of females shagged by Miller. What are my thoughts about the Tropic of Cancer? Well, it is one of those books that you just enjoy the beautiful prose, what I would call pornography as poetry. Henry Miller is your eternal optimist who makes the worst appear not so bad. As he puts it here, "This is my second year in Paris. I have no money, no resources, no hope. I am the happiest man alive." Well, Miller is a paradox. It can be seen where he gives money to one prostitute for nothing and then steals from the other after receiving full service. His relationship with females is like his relationship with Paris, love and hate, a never-ending emotional roller coaster. I myself like Tropic of Cancer. It parallels a period in my own life when, in my 30s, I spent 7 years living in the Copacabana neighborhood of Rio de Janeiro. For me, it was like living in Miller's 1930s Paris, but with a few differences, such as palm trees, the beach, and nice weather. My experience was well over half a century later, but the characters, emotions, and exploits I witnessed or participated in were very similar to the ones described in the Tropic of Cancer. So, I probably get Henry Miller on a more personal level. It is like a man who has been to combat will understand the description of combat more profoundly than somebody who has not. And he will instinctively know when the writer is exaggerating or lying. Miller writes what he feels, and for me the honesty of his expression is enough to justify any transgressions he commits against socially accepted behavior. Anyway, I am not much into caring for social rules. Miller is your typical expat, tired of routine and looking for inspiration and adventures, leaves it all behind and moves to some faraway, foreign, exotic place, but rarely finds what he is looking for or what he expected. What makes Henry Miller different is his courage and talent to express his outer and inner experiences and willingness to write it all down. He makes visible what most people prefer to keep hidden. Miller is your ultimate starving artist. He says, "The only thing that stands between me and a future is meal, another meal." He is usually penniless and hungry, so the large part of his time is spent thinking and fantasizing about food. Here are a few quotes from the book. "I am looking at a baby's plate with leftover chicken bones. They still have some meat on them. And I decided to ask for, no, demand food. So I wrote a handful of letters saying, 'Will you let me have a meal with you once a week?' Nobody refused. People were happy that they would see me only once a week." He continues, "Emerson said, 'Life consists of what man is thinking about all day.' So for me, life is my stomach, since I think about food all day, and I dream about it all night." Besides thinking about food, Henry Miller gives us his opinions on different subjects. Here is his take on Jews. "I could become a Jew. I already speak like a Jew, and I am as ugly as a Jew. And who hates Jews more than a Jew? And God. When man finds God, he has already been picked clean, and there is nothing left on the bones. And I have found God, and he is insufficient, but I am only dead spiritually. Physically, I am alive." And then his opinion about America. "America is the very incarnation of doom. She will drag the whole world down to the bottomless pit." Were these words prophetic? I don't know. Looking around nowadays, it seems we are in the race to the bottom, economically, politically, and morally. And a lot of it might have been inspired by the American cultural ideals exported throughout the world. Further, there is Miller on politics. "I prefer dictatorship to today's political impotence," which is kind of what we have today, a bunch of spineless politicians unwilling to take any risk. So maybe what we need is somebody with some balls and integrity. Yes, there are consequences of dictatorships, but there are also consequences of today's political and social chaos, and I am not sure which ones are worse. Actually, one is the consequence of the other. The political cycle goes from republic to democracy to chaos to dictatorship and then back to the beginning and the Republic. Well, let's continue. Here is Miller's take on people. Human beings make a strange fauna and flora. From a distance, they appear negligible. Close up, they are apt to appear ugly and malicious. More than anything, they need to be surrounded with sufficient space. Space even more than time. Basically, what he is saying is that if you get too close to the people, they will bite you. And this leads us to Miller's feelings about being alone. I need to be alone. I need to ponder my shame and my despair in seclusion. I need the sunshine and the paving stones of the streets without companions, without conversation, face to face with myself, with only the music of my heart for company. Yes, there is no better cure for the social ills than isolation. Today we are never alone, but more lonely than ever. And here are Miller's thoughts about Paris. Paris is a living being, unlike American cities. It is a prostitute. And my Paris has to be experienced in 1,000 different ways. It has to be lived. It would take a lifetime to know it. And last but not least, we get Miller on Miller. I am an egoist, but I am not selfish. There is a difference. I am a neurotic, I guess. I can't stop thinking about myself. It isn't that I think myself so important. I simply can't think about anything else. That's all. If I could fall in love with a woman, that might help some. But I can't find a woman who interests me. And there are many more fascinating observations and opinions, and much more of Miller's life philosophy. But to enjoy it, you will have to read the book. To sum it up, the Tropic of Cancer will offend and drive away many, but to others it will be a breath of fresh air in an oversensitive, over-controlled, and pretentious world of today. There are some who will appreciate the literary value of the book with its form and style of expression, and others will enjoy the experiences and adventures described. It is difficult to stay indifferent. You will either be offended or relate, hate it or love it. And that probably was Miller's aim, to pass on to the reader and stimulate the emotions and the senses. To me, personally, the writing is beautiful and penetrating, and even obscenities sound poetic. Miller was greatly influenced by the 19th century poets such as Whitman, Rimbaud, and Baudelaire, and it comes out in the book. I think what we can conclude from reading Tropic of Cancer is that whether you like or hate him, one thing that is difficult to deny is that Henry Miller was fully alive in his writings, as he probably was in his life, and he didn't like to hold anything back. Should you read Tropic of Cancer? As with any book, there is the risk of disappointment. But if you are curious about it, it might be worth to find out what kind of reaction will you get from reading it. If you are interested in the visual media, there is a 1970 film adaptation of the book. The time period changes from the 30s to the 60s, and there is a lot of profanity and nudity, as in the book, but it misses the poetic side of it. And it has the obvious limitations of the adaptations of large literary works. Okay, let's talk about the physical book. The book I am holding is a paperback which I transform into a hardcover leather-bound edition. To make the cover, I use grade A, naturally tan hide. I buy from a tanner in North Spain. It is the same leather Louis Vuitton uses to make his bags, so it is top quality. I do all the processing of leather myself. First, I designed the cover, which what I did here, I took the satirical painting of the early 20th century Paris night scene with three somewhat used and abused ladies of the night, enticing three a bit eccentric individuals, and I adapted it to the cover since it kind of embodies the book's physical or carnal side. If you want to see a more detailed video where I explain how I transform paperback into leather-bound hardcover, click on the link in the description. I will make a maximum of 100 editions of each title. Each one will be numbered and initialed, and the numbers will go in chronological order from 2 up, since number 1 stays with me. The price will be around $100, so if you would like me to make one for you, you can click below on my email and send me a message. I do not guarantee I will do it, since it will depend on the time I have available, access to leather, and if I can get my hands on the copy of the book. Now, if you're not willing to spend $100 but you still want the book, what you can do is click below on the PayPal link and donate $3 or more to my channel, and for every 100 donations I will make a lottery and draw one name, and the winner will receive the book. So if you are cheap but feel lucky, this might be the way to do it. Also, your donations give me the extra motivation to make the book reviews, and I appreciate them very much. So thank you in advance. One more thing, when you make your donation, remember to include the title of the book you would like to win. The book itself is beautiful. Visually it has a very nice texture, it smells great, and the more you handle it, the more beautiful it will become. And it makes a great gift for yourself or somebody who appreciates books. So if you want one, don't snooze or you might lose. Well, that's it. So let's end it here, and until next time, keep your ear close to the ground and read a book. Adios.